Good afternoon. We're going to start our program briefly. If you guys wouldn't mind starting to funnel to your chairs, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Secretary Duffy, Administrator McMaster, members of Congress, and esteemed guests and colleagues, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Library of Congress. My name is Robin Dale, and I am the Deputy Librarian here at the Library of Congress, and we're so excited to have you here today with us. Today, we're commemorating the 70th anniversary of the Eisenhower Interstate System here in the library's historic Thomas Jefferson building. And it's a fitting site for this commemoration. So when this building was opened in 1897, it was presented as America's monument to knowledge, to learning, to technological advancement, and by extension to democracy itself. And just like the Eisenhower Interstate System, it reflects a great civic optimism and belief in unbounded American potential. As institutions, the Library of Congress and the Interstate System have something very important in common. We both create freedom of access for American people. For the library, the freedom of access is intellectual and creative. As America's oldest federal cultural institution and the largest library in the world, we provide Congress and the American people with access to the largest collection of human knowledge ever assembled. For the interstate system, that freedom of access is geographic and tangible. Americans' mobilities and roadways have shaped our national character and identity thanks to the infrastructure and security established by the Federal Aid Highway Act 70 years ago today. And of course, we had to bring these two themes together here for this event. Our talented staff at the library have assembled a curated collection display that tells the story of the Eisenhower Interstate System and the effects on American life. I'm going to encourage you to enjoy the display and engage with our curators. It'll be in the room next door to us, and that will be following the program. And you're in for a real treat when you see those collections. I would also invite you to extend your stay and visit the Jefferson Building after today's event concludes and experience the grandeur of the Great Hall that you will see out in the main area that you may have come through and as you exit. But with that, I would like to welcome Federal Highway Administrator Sean McMaster to the podium for his opening remarks. Sean?
Well, good afternoon. God, what an amazing day and what an amazing location to have such a just significant milestone event. As I couldn't be more excited to be back at the Department of Transportation. Such an honor to work for the President and Secretary Duffy in such a critical role, and so lucky to be here at the time where we kind of mark this major milestone in such a transformative transportation highway facility. I want to take a quick moment to recognize some of the incredible leadership in this room. Obviously, super honored just to have the Deputy Secretary here to support this event. Chairman Sam Graves from the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee. We may have Ranking Member Larson here in a little bit, as well as partners from the Library of Congress and of course, our state Department of Transportation CEOs. What an honor to have you all here with us to celebrate this major milestone. Today we're going to hear from Deputy Secretary Bradbury about the Trump administration priorities, the interstate highway system, and Freedom 250. But today we celebrate the 70th anniversary of the Dwight D. Eisenhower National System of Interstate and Defense Highways, the roads that carry us to every corner of the United States, and we sure need them. Our reliance on this infrastructure remains absolute. As of 2022, private vehicle travel accounted for a staggering 87% of all trips nationwide. When you add in freight and transit, our roads and bridges account for 91% of all transportation trips in a given year. But to appreciate the scale of where we are going, we have to look back on how we got here. When President Eisenhower enacted the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, he was looking directly into the future of American need. In the 1950s, critics warned Eisenhower that 80 million cars were bound for American roads. Where some saw concerns, Eisenhower saw nothing but a green light. He said, "We want those cars. They mean progress for our country. They mean greater convenience for greater numbers of people, greater happiness, and greater standards of living." He knew that they meant freedom, progress, and a better life for our people. 7 decades later, the sheer scale of that vision is clear. Those original 80 million projected cars have multiplied into nearly 300 million cars, personal vehicles, commercial vehicles registered on our roads today. Let's talk numbers. When you calculate the total historical cost, building this massive network cost more than $120 billion. To put that in perspective, that is more than it cost to put a man on the moon. But look at the return on investment. The economic engine of this system is undeniable. While the original rate of return was as high as 55% in those early decades, today, if our interstate system vanished, our entire economy would shrink by 4%. Every single cent we put into it was worth it. In fact, people travel more than 840 billion miles per year on the interstate system, which carries almost 26% of America's highway traffic. And we aren't done yet. There are roughly 7,700 congressionally designated miles of interstate yet to be built, so our greatest expansion and value are still ahead of us. The FHWA exists because of the interstates and the national highway system. Moving forward, my absolute priority is to modernize it, expand it, and to take unwavering care of the American people who depend on it. In a special collaboration to mark this 70th anniversary, the Library of Congress has opened its vaults to curate an exclusive, first-of-its-kind collection. Following the speaking portion of our agenda, you will be able to look through these historical records where you'll find everything from concrete manufacturing specifications to the original hearings for the Federal Highway Act of 1956. You'll even see how the interstates shaped American culture, from the growth of the iconic motel industry to the inspiration behind John Denver's "Take Me Home, Country Roads." Now that we've seen the beginnings of the interstate highway system, it's time to look to the future. I'd like to take this opportunity to announce that we will be publishing a request for information that will help shape the future of the Eisenhower interstate system. I am calling on everyone in this room to contribute to the Reimagining America's Interstates RFI. Your expertise is vital for this next chapter. It is time to renew and upgrade this network for the next generation, making it faster, safer, more efficient, more innovative, and more productive. The FHWA is launching this RFI to gather the insights we need to identify where new interstate facilities were needed for major upgrades or new corridor concepts that should be built. This RFI will be published in the Federal Register in the coming days. As we look ahead to the next chapter, we must remember that infrastructure has always been at the heart of the American story. As our nation approaches its 250 years of American independence this weekend, we are choosing not just to look back on our milestone achievements, but to build upon them. We are honoring our past by paving the way for a grander future. To mark this incredible milestone in our nation's history, I would like now to officially unveil FHWA's Freedom 250 road sign honoring our 70th anniversary of our interstate highway system. We we are excited to say that these are already beginning to go up around our country, including states like Florida, Georgia, Texas, and more. I want to thank you for joining us here today. You're tireless transportation advocates and incredibly valued partners in our mission to create big, beautiful, and safe roads and bridges as we get America building again. We share a common interest in ensuring that our nation's transportation system, and particularly the interstate highway system, is robust and the envy of the world. I look forward to building a stronger America together. Thank you, and now I will turn things over to Deputy Secretary of Transportation, Stephen Bradbury.
Thank you, Sean. I really want to thank Sean for his leadership, for Secretary Duffy and President Trump. It's awesome to partner together with Sean. Again, we had the chance to work together in the first Trump administration, and wow, this administration, it's so much, even more fun than the first time around. I mean, so much ambition, so many challenges that we're taking on. And Robin, thank you for hosting us here in the Library of Congress, the most gorgeous building, I think, in Washington, and it's just really a privilege to be here. Thanks, everybody, for coming. You know, in this season when we're celebrating 250 years of freedom in America, it's absolutely fitting that we're also celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Eisenhower Interstate Highway System. Now, the official title of the system is it's now the Eisenhower National System of Interstate and Defense Highways. It's a very significant title. It tells you a lot. If you think about our republic, our constitutional republic, and our Congress of limited powers, two of those key powers are, number one, to regulate interstate commerce and tie together the economic might of our nation and different regions of our country economically, but also, of course, critically, to provide for the national defense. And this system of interstate highways was designed to do both of those things. And I think it's probably fair to say that our interstate highway system is the greatest single physical achievement of our republic. And Eisenhower had this vision, and Eisenhower was critically focused on both aspects, the economic and the national defense. You probably all know the story of what he did in 1919 when he led an Army convoy from Lafayette Square, or from the Ellipse in Washington, D.C., to Lincoln Square in San Francisco. And you think, well, what's so great about that? Well, in 1919, even though we had fought and won a world war, we didn't have paved highways across the United States. A lot of that way, they were slogging through mud and deserts, and it was a major deal to get that a lot of breakdowns, and it took 62 days to get across the country. So after, again, fighting and winning the Second World War, Eisenhower, then President Eisenhower, realized we have a critical need for national defense to have this national highway system and to pave those roads, to widen those roads, so that in case of national emergency and we need a major mobilization, we have a highway system to support that. But also, think of the economics. Our entire economy rests on the interstate highway system. It's probably the single most important feature of that. In talking about Congress's authority over interstate commerce, one of the things that touches is what we call instrumentalities of interstate commerce. And the Eisenhower Interstate Highway System is the largest and most important instrumentality of interstate commerce in the United States. Much of our freight runs on the interstate highway system. People, goods move. It is totally integral to our national economy. I think Sean mentioned it. We're now driving more than 850 billion miles on our just the Eisenhower Interstate highway system. That's not all the highway systems in the country. So absolutely critical. The other thing that I think is really telling is the name of the legislation that gave rise to this system, the Federal Aid Highway Bill. That also is a key indicator about our Republican structure of government, our constitutional structure, because it gets to another critical aspect of our freedom, and that's our structure of federalism. We're not just a national government that does everything from the top down for the American people. We are a structure of a national government and critically the state governments. And the federal aid highway system reflects that. It's federal support to the states to maintain, operate these critical highway arteries for our country. And so it's a privilege to be here with members from AASHTO, the association, the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officers. We have Jim Timon, who is the executive director of AASHTO. We've got Russell McMurray, who is the current president of AASHTO, and other members of AASHTO. They are critical partners with Sean, the Federal Highway Administration, with Congress, and to maintain the highways, build new highways, and everything that follows from that. The interstate highway system was initially intended to last for 50 years. Of course, here we are celebrating the 70th. There's been a lot of investment put into maintaining the highway system, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. And that's why we're putting out this request for ideas, this RFI that Sean and FHWA will be issuing in the coming days to ask for ideas. And we're also focused on major projects around the country. We have a lot of representatives from industry here who are, again, are critical partners to the states, to the U.S. Department of Transportation in making those investments. So we're looking for ideas. This administration is interested, focused under President Trump, who's a builder, under Secretary Duffy, top priority. We want to invest, we want to build, we want to expand. And that means new sections of the interstate highway system, building more toward that goal of finishing the system, as Sean mentioned, but also expanding, widening existing stretches. We want to address those critical choke points, areas of congestion around the country. We have another initiative the Secretary's recently announced called the Freedom to Drive Initiative, where we're looking again for the state governors to identify those choke points, those areas of critical congestion where we can work together, state and federal partners and private sector, to make investments in relieving that congestion. And we're definitely interested in partnering with the private sector in this, including public-private investment structures, innovative financing opportunities. We're doing that. Russell will tell you in Georgia, with managed lanes projects. You see it in Virginia. We're working on that with Tennessee, with North Carolina, and others. And so there are opportunities for private investment in improving the interstate. And we're definitely working with Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Larson, welcome, on ideas for surface transportation reauthorization that will expand the aperture for these kinds of investments. Because the future of economic health, vitality, prosperity, the quality of life for America in the next 250 years is going to be just as dependent on the Eisenhower interstate highway system as has been the recent decades. And with changing freight patterns, with aging infrastructure, with the need to install digital corridors, combine different assets together in co-located opportunities. There's just a lot to be done in terms of new investment in the highway system. So we love the attention, but we've all got to get to work. And so thank you all for being here. And here's to the next 70 years of the interstate highway system. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Secretary Bradbury. You know, he mentioned a really key point here, and that is the federal relationship with the states when it comes to delivering on this federal aid system that we love and enjoy every single day. And so it is my great pleasure to introduce the Executive Director of the association that oversees the delivery of the federal aid system, Director Jim Timon.
Well, thank you, Sean, and thank you, Deputy Secretary Bradbury and FHWA and USDOT for hosting us here today. As the Executive Director of AASHTO, I have the honor of representing the State Departments of Transportation from across the country, and you're going to hear from several of them later on this afternoon, but I do want to recognize AASHTO President and Commissioner of the Georgia DOT, Russell McMurray, Mark Williams, who is AASHTO's Vice President and the Executive Director of the Texas Department of Transportation, Tracy Larkin-Tomlinson as well from Nevada. And we also have several other state DOT officials here in the room, including Florida DOT Secretary Jared Perdue, Oklahoma DOT Secretary Tim Gatz, and I think Kansas DOT Secretary Calvin Reed in the room as well. Oh, there's Calvin back there. So thank you all for making the trip out here to be able to celebrate the 70th anniversary of our nation's interstate system. This is a big year for America, but also specifically for transportation. This year we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the U.S. numbered highway system. Now, Deputy Secretary Bradbury talked a little bit about Eisenhower's first trip across the country and the fact that that first trip did not go as smoothly as any road trip that you might take today trying to get across the country. And that really demonstrated the need for the states to be able to come together and establish a system of roads that connected at the state borders so that we could have that seamless interstate travel across the country. And AASHTO, as an organization, really served as a role in making sure that we were able to designate those systems. This year is the 100th anniversary of Route 66 and several other of those major route numbers within the U.S. highway system. And AASHTO, as an organization, works with FHWA to designate those routes and to assign those numbers. And it's 100 years ago, this November, AASHTO members came together and essentially designated those first set of numbered highway systems across the country. And that really became kind of the precursor for the U.S. interstate highway system that we have today. And we, as a state DOT community and AASHTO as an organization, have continued to play a role in making sure that the nation has facilities that enable you to travel across the country. At the AASHTO annual meeting in December of 1955, the association's membership adopted a statement urging once and for all the enhancement of the enactment of an expansive and adequate interstate highway program for the country. And that really kicked off the support for Eisenhower's vision to be able to build an interconnected system of roads and bridges across the country. We are so fortunate today that we have that network of highways and bridges to be able to connect states and people and freight. And as Deputy Secretary Bradbury said, one of the core functions of the federal government is to ensure for the national defense as well as to provide for interstate commerce and interstate travel. And the interstate system at its core allows us to do so. Now, 70 years later, the interstate system has had a dramatic impact on our lives, not just when it was created, but really every year since. The interstate system, as both Deputy Secretary Bradbury and Administrator McMaster had mentioned, is a combination of federally funded but state administered programs. And as not a lot of folks outside of the transportation realm realize this, but the federal government doesn't own the interstate system. It is actually the individual states that own those individual facilities. But we work closely with our partners at USDOT and FHWA specifically to secure the funding that's necessary to maintain and continue to expand the interstate highway system so that we can continue to provide for interstate travel, interstate commerce, and the national defense. I also want to recognize Chairman Graves, Ranking Member Larson, for the work that they have done specifically over the last few years, but especially last month in the passage of, at the committee level, of the next version of the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill. The federal funding that comes through that bill really enables state DOTs to be able to invest in the interstate highway system. So congratulations on that significant achievement, and we look forward to working with you and your counterparts in the Senate to make sure that that bill is able to move through the next stage of the process. We'd love to see a bill done by September 30th. If that is, let's not laugh, there's still a possibility there, right? But if not, then hopefully by the end of the calendar year, if not. So, but it is a significant achievement, and it's a significant aspect of how state DOTs are able to provide funding and the delivery of those facilities on the interstate highway system. So I am happy to honor this milestone today on behalf of the state DOTs across the country, and I look forward to the next 70 years of delivering and managing transportation systems that work for our economy and communities across the U.S. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. It is my great pleasure. Now, we have a series of speakers here from the states to talk to us a little bit about what the interstate highway system means for them and is meant for our country. So it is my great honor here to introduce the AASHTO President and Georgia Department of Transportation Commissioner Russell McMurray.
Thank you, Administrator McMaster. Today is a very special day, and I am truly honored and privileged to be able to play a part of such a significant day. Ladies and gentlemen, few public works projects have ever shaped the United States as profoundly as the Eisenhower Interstate Highway System in its more than 48,000 miles of roadway. It is truly the backbone of American mobility, commerce, and of course national defense we've heard about already. But behind this monumental achievement stands a story of leadership, vision, and the ability to turn national challenges into national opportunity. When President Eisenhower entered office in 1953, he carried with him at least two very powerful experiences. The first you've heard about from Deputy Secretary Bradbury, that 1919 over 2 months journey from Washington to San Francisco. The second one of his experiences was that his exposure to the Autobahn during World War II. Both of these experiences helped convince him that the United States needed a modern, high-speed, and a strategically resilient highway system that connected the United States. You know, ideas are great, but it takes action to get things done, and it takes people to advance infrastructure. And that's where Georgia's own General Lucius Clay enters the story. A West Point-trained engineer, Clay rose through the Army Corps of Engineers before World War II. He played many major roles, including work as part of the New Deal infrastructure projects in the Civilian Conservation Corps, and worked on major dam and river waterway projects. He later became internationally known for his efforts of directing the Berlin airlifts. Clay was one of Eisenhower's most trusted advisors, and Eisenhower appointed him to the President's Advisory Committee on the National Highway Program in 1954. Clay's task was not to simply design a modern highway system to connect the nation, but to craft a plan to Congress and work with Congress and the states and the American public for which they could and would support. Clay approached this challenge with discipline of an engineer and the pragmatism of a statesman. He emphasized three principles. You've heard one of them already. The first, national defense. He argued that a unified highway network was essential for troop movement, evacuation routes, something that Florida and Georgia has to do too often, and continuity of government. The framing also resonated deeply during this Cold War era in the 1950s. Second was economic growth, and you've heard that mentioned before. Clay understood that the highways were not just transportation assets, but they were catalysts for regional development, obviously freight movement and troop movement, but really for urban modernization as well through many of the major cities in the United States. Thirdly, a funding model. Clay's committee proposed the Highway Trust Fund, financed by user fees on fuel and vehicles. This innovation created a dedicated revenue stream that allowed the interstate system to be built without destabilizing the federal budget at the time. I got a feeling their budget numbers were lower than what we're dealing with today. Clay's recommendations became the foundation of the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, the landmark legislation that we're here to celebrate today, and that really launched the interstate era. Eisenhower provided the vision and the political will, and Clay provided the structure, a financing strategy, and the persuasive force that made the system possible. Today, I'm honored to serve as the Commissioner of the Georgia Department of Transportation and feel a great pride knowing that a fellow Georgian helped make the interstate system a reality that we've all benefited from. And as we look to the future, whether it's rebuilding aging corridors, and I remind everybody that those original corridors are eligible for Social Security, working with the U.S. DOT on integrating new technologies, and preparing for the next generation of mobility, we stand on the foundation laid by President Eisenhower. Let his bold leadership, as President Eisenhower possessed, and General Clay's disciplined execution inspire us for the next 70 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those remarks. Now I am pleased to introduce the Texas Department of Transportation Executive Director, Mark Williams.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Administrator McMaster and Deputy Secretary Bradbury. Really do appreciate the opportunity. It's an honor to be here today. Again, my name is Mark Williams, and I have the privilege of serving as the Executive Director with the Texas Department of Transportation. Talk a little bit about recognizing the importance and the significance of the interstate highway system, a system that is one of the most remarkable transportation achievements in history, and it stands as a tribute, as has been recognized, to generations of engineers, planners, builders, public servants who've helped to connect America. And as some of the previous speakers have spoken about the role of President Eisenhower and General Clay, one example of that legacy is the mark that Texas left on one of the system's most recognizable symbols. In 1956, a gentleman named Richard Oliver was a senior traffic engineer with the Texas Highway Department in our maintenance division. And he was tasked with developing Texas's submission in a contest to design the new interstate highway route signs. Mr. Oliver wanted a design that could be easy to manufacture, yet reflected the unique federal authority of the new system. But he was not certain if his preferred red, white, and blue design would pass the scrutiny with the Federal Bureau of Public Roads. Can you imagine that? But in the end, Mr. Oliver and Texas's design was recommended by the American Association of State Highway Officials, which AASHTO was known at this time, and it became the iconic national symbol of the interstate highway system. During Mr. Oliver's era in 1962, when Texas's first interstate segment opened along I-35 in downtown Austin, Texas had fewer than 10 million residents and an economy rooted in oil, gas, agriculture, manufacturing, and regional trade. Since then, Texas's population has more than tripled. Our economy has become one of the most diverse in the world, and our interstate system has been the backbone of that growth. Today, with over 3,200 centerline miles and over 10,000 lane miles carrying millions of passenger and freight trips every day, Texas's interstate system is the largest and the busiest in the nation. Today's size and scale of our interstate highways can be hard to grasp. In Houston, the I-10 Katy Freeway reaches more than 26 lanes in places where main lanes, managed lanes, ramps, and frontage roads are included. And every day, Texans drive about 241 million miles along our interstate corridors, with freight trucks accounting for about 42 million of those daily miles. This is not just traffic, it's commerce. It's economic opportunity, it's emergency response, and it's our daily life in motion. As Texas continues to grow, the interstate system is growing with it. Future congressionally designated interstates like Interstate 14, Interstate 27, and Interstate 69 will strengthen connections between communities, military installations, ports, border gateways, and major economic regions. That is why our interstates matter, as they have helped Texas and our nation compete and grow in unparalleled ways. When we drive on an interstate highway, we are traveling on one of the greatest civic investments in American history. Our responsibility now is to protect and invest in that legacy, modernize it, and prepare it for future generations. Thank you again for the opportunity to join you today on this great occasion. Thank you.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine there might have been some discussion over signs for the interstate and maybe a little bit of discontinuity between federal requirements and the states. We'll hold that discussion for a later day, but let me introduce our next speaker, Nevada Department of Transportation Director Tracy Larkin.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Minister McMaster and Deputy Secretary Bradbury. I hate it when I start off trembling. Anyway, good afternoon, everybody. I am, first of all, on a personal note, as a transportation nerd for over 30 years, I couldn't be prouder to be here today talking to you about the interstate system. And it is a privilege to join you as we reflect on one of the most transformative public infrastructure investments in our nation's history, the Dwight D. Eisenhower National System of Interstate and Defense Highways. Long name, but great title. More than 70 years ago, President Eisenhower had the foresight to envision a transportation network that would connect America like never before. His vision was rooted in national defense, economic strength, and mobility, but its impact has reached far beyond what anyone could have imagined. The interstate system has helped shape modern America, linking communities, opening markets, creating opportunities, and supporting generations of economic growth. In Nevada, we see that impact every day. Our interstate highways serve as critical lifelines for the movement of goods throughout the West and across the nation. Interstate 80 connects our state to major markets from the Pacific Coast to the heartland of America, all the way over to the East Coast, while Interstate 15 serves as a vital north-south corridor supporting commerce, tourism, freight movement throughout the Southwest. Unlike many regions of the country, the Western United States has very little redundancy in its transportation network. When an interstate corridor is disrupted, there are few practical alternatives. This reality makes these routes even more essential, not only for our states, but for the national economy. The reliability and resilience of our interstate system are fundamental to keeping goods moving, businesses operating, and communities connected. At the same time, the interstate story is still being written. Nevada is proud to be home to the nation's newest interstate corridor, Interstate 11. Today, I-11 is strengthening connections between southern Nevada and Arizona, and in the years ahead, it's envisioned as a major transportation corridor linking Las Vegas and Phoenix, two of the fastest growing metropolitan areas in the country. Looking even further into the future, Interstate 11 has the potential to become part of a continuous corridor stretching from Canada to Mexico, creating new opportunities for trade, mobility, and economic development throughout the West. It is a reminder that while we honor Eisenhower's vision, we also have a responsibility to continue building upon it. As we celebrate the accomplishments of the past, we are equally excited about the future. The interstate system that Eisenhower envisioned continues to evolve. Today, emerging technologies are creating opportunities that previous generations could scarcely imagine. Connected and interoperable transportation systems, real-time data sharing, intelligent infrastructure, and advances in vehicle technology have the potential to deliver new levels of safety, efficiency, and reliability. These innovations will do more than improve transportation. They will strengthen commerce, expand tourism, enhance supply chains, and create new economic opportunities for communities large and small. Just as the original interstate system transformed how Americans move across the country, the next generation of transportation technology can transform how people, goods, and information move throughout our economy. As transportation leaders, we have the responsibility to preserve the remarkable legacy we inherited while embracing the innovations that will define the future. By continuing to invest in our interstate network and the technologies that support it, we can ensure that Eisenhower's vision remains a driving force for America's prosperity for generations to come. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. What an honor to turn to our next two speakers here. I want to thank our members of Congress who are in the room today, and specifically, what an honor to have our House Transportation and Infrastructure Ranking Member, Rick Larson, here for some words. Mr. Larson?
Yeah, so thanks. It's great to be here this afternoon, and thanks for picking the Library of Congress to recognize the role that Congress, in fact, does play in making all this happen. And you can hear a little bit more of that from Sam as well. But as the ranking member of the House T&I Committee, and if you have ever seen me at home, all I talk about is transportation all the time. And so I'm glad to do it here. I want to go a little further back in history, where if you look at the Constitution, it recognizes Congress's role in establishing post roads. That's how far back it goes. In fact, the first documented multimodal trip took place around 1801 to 1805, when Lewis and Clark went across the country on coach, on horse, on water, and on foot, and back again. So multimodal has been part of the transportation network as well in our long, long history in the United States. But back to a few other things. The T&I Committee is tasked with maintaining and modernizing the interstate highway system that Congress created 70 years ago with the leadership then of President Eisenhower, and now the leadership of the current administration, and of course, of Sam Graves. I'm going to say Sam's name a lot because we don't get to say Sam's name much more after this year, because he's retiring on us and leaving a huge gap that we all have to fill. But Sam and I take this role very seriously. Last month, the T&I Committee passed a 5-year surface transportation reauthorization bill known as the Build America 250 Act. The legislation invests $580 billion to improve roads, bridges, transit, rail, sidewalks, bike lanes, freight corridors in every community across the country. We know that infrastructure investment equals jobs for the women and men who are building and maintaining and repairing the current and the future transportation system of this country. And the Build America 250 Act keeps the bipartisan infrastructure law funding levels going in recognition that you can't have a big league economy with little league infrastructure. Importantly, it's also the product of bipartisan negotiations, and I'm proud to continue to maintain that the T&I Committee remains an island of partnership in what can be a sea of partisanship in the U.S. House of Representatives. It's important to note as well, I think, that the interstate highway system is one of the most impressive public works projects of the 20th century, comprising more than 46,000 miles of roadways that connect people and keeps our economy moving. I do have an idea for one of your Freedom to Drive projects, if we can just continue to fund the interstate bridge replacement, the IBR, and giving people in Washington and Oregon and everyone using I-5 the freedom to drive north and south until Interstate 11 gets done, of course. But that's one project. But I also want to note there's a lot of off-system bridges, and I bring this up because of Sam's leadership in the T&I bill. We have one of the most robust investments in bridge repair and replacement as a result of Sam Graves' leadership. We just replaced an off-system bridge in Everett, Washington that Harry Truman built in 1946. I'm telling you, I think we got our 80 years of investment out of that bridge, and now we don't have to replace it again for 100 years. The problem is, on the same stretch of road, Herbert Hoover built a bridge. It's got a 1929 stone in it. And so, clearly you get your money's worth when you invest in transportation infrastructure. And for the inconvenience of a year or so of replacing bridges or doing these projects, you get the 100-year payoff. And I just want to be sure you keep that in mind. And thinking about the 70 years we've had with the interstate system, you think about the next 70 and the investment we have. I do want to end on a note of caution, however. As we celebrate the 70-year milestone, we have to acknowledge that some communities have shouldered the burden more than others. Highway construction has displaced an estimated 475,000 homes and 1 million people over time, disproportionately people of color, a legacy that many communities are still struggling with today, and we can repair that. We can repair that damage. The system has also evolved over time. In the early 80s, thanks to President Reagan's leadership and an insistent Congress, we started investing in transit, and now 20% of Highway Trust Fund dollars go into a mass transit account to continue to help people move and help goods move. We have an ongoing epidemic of roadway deaths that claimed 36,640 lives last year, a disproportionate number being cyclists and pedestrians. We can and must do better to build safer streets for everyone, giving local governments meaningful funding opportunities. And finally, I would note the Federal Highway Aid Program must also continue to invest in tribal communities that too often are overburdened and under-consulted on projects that impact tribal land. But thanks to Sam Graves' leadership as the chair of this committee, we have provided a balanced investment in the next 5 years with the Build America 250 Act. And I do, too, hope that we have a Senate that we can work with to build upon the work that we did very soon, but I'll leave that to the Senate. With that, thanks so much. I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
Thank you for those words. What an honor to introduce our cleanup speaker here today, Chairman of the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee, Chairman Sam Graves.
You know what they say about the last speaker? Everything's been said, but not everybody said it yet. I do appreciate, Sean, you invited me over here, and I also want to thank the Library of Congress for doing this, Robin. The Library of Congress building is one of my favorite buildings by far in Washington, D.C., and particularly the members' reading room, which I do cherish. You know, we've got a lot of great things going on this year with the 250 anniversary and a lot of great celebrations, and I can't think of anything better than to couple with that than the celebration, obviously, the 70-year celebration of our interstate system. President Eisenhower, he did recognize a lot of neat things when he started this process, and obviously his two main focuses, as has been pointed out, was strengthening the economy and national defense. But when they passed that in 1956, when they passed that Federal Aid Highway Act, it was going to and did do a lot of great things. And basically, it laid, or I guess it laid the foundation for the focus that we even see today in terms of what our transportation system looks like. And it also put in place that Highway Trust Fund, which is exactly what we still use to this day to fund our highway system. It's something that we have to maintain and something that we have to push forward. And I can't think of a better way to celebrate the 70th anniversary than to pass the Build America 250 Act that we got out of committee. So, as Rick pointed out, a very bipartisan bill. It passed 62-2. So I think we hit just the right spot. It does do some historic things, as Rick pointed out, historic investment in bridges, and it also provides the very first new revenue into the Highway Trust Fund in 30 years, which is a huge accomplishment. And I hope we can keep that in there. But we need to get that bill passed, and we need to get it done right away. Obviously, the deadline is September 30th. It's hard to see if we're going to be able to make that deadline, but we will pass it out of the House, and then, of course, we will wait on the Senate and for them to do their work. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a great bill. I'm very proud of it. I know Rick is very proud of it. We worked very hard to put that bill together, and we did that together. And so that's what makes it such a great piece of legislation. But thank you so much for the opportunity, Sean. I appreciate it. This is awesome. It really is. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and just a strong congratulations on your recent success here with your legislation to reauthorize and set the policy priorities and the funding levels for these critical federal aid programs that we all rely on, that our families rely on, that our communities rely on. So we're rooting for you in the process to finish up as expeditiously as possible. But the interstate system, currently 47,000 miles long and change, directly serves all but 4 state capitals, one of which isn't even in the continental United States. But it transports goods and freight, and most importantly, the American people. Now, the Reimagining America's Interstates RFI gives us the opportunity to redesign our interstates for the next century. I hope that you will provide input into how you think we should design and implement the interstates of the future. America is the greatest country in the world, and thanks to this RFI, we will continue to have the greatest interstate highway system in the world. That's a perfect gift to give our country for its 250th anniversary. I hope that you will take some time to enjoy the incredible artifacts of the Library of Congress curated for this event. Thank you for joining us here to celebrate the 70th anniversary of the interstate system. I want to give a special thanks to the Library of Congress and to our speakers, the Deputy Secretary, Chairman, Ranking Member, our state CEOs, members of Congress, and other CEOs here in the room today. Thank you for coming here to this event. What an awesome, awesome day to celebrate something that has meant so much to everyone here in this room and our communities. And I hope you share my appreciation for the importance of this system and how much this freedom and opportunity has provided to the United States. Here's to the next 70 years. Thank you.